Usually when we talk about getting a medical diagnosis, there is this baseline expectation of precision. It feels like engineering.
Right, it's very clinical.
Exactly. Like you fall, you break your arm, you go to the hospital, and the X-ray shows that jagged white line on a black background.
Yeah, it's a binary state. I mean, the bone is broken or the bone is intact.
Right. And the doctor just points a pen at it and says, there it is. That's the problem. It's clean.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's comforting.
It is comforting. We naturally gravitate toward things we can see.
We want to neatly categorize everything. We want the world to work exactly like that X-ray machine.
Which is exactly why things get so incredibly complicated when you step outside of something as mechanical as a fractured radius.
Right.
If you step into a field like, say, neurodevelopment or trying to diagnose complex psychological trauma, well, that X-ray machine is entirely useless.
Oh, totally useless.
You are no longer looking at a crisp white line. You're looking at a diagnostic landscape that is fluid, dependent on context, and frankly, incredibly murky.
It's just diagnostic muddy waters. You're trying to measure the invisible.
Exactly.
And I think that exact feeling of disorientation, that lack of a clear X-ray, applies perfectly to the digital spaces you and I navigate every single day.
Oh, absolutely.
I actually want you, the listener, to do something for a second. Look at your phone screen right now. Or, just think about it if it's in your pocket.
Just visualize the home screen.
Yeah, think about the sheer volume of notifications sitting there. The red badges, the emails, the constant policy update pop-ups.
The interface changes on your favorite platforms that seem to just happen overnight without warning.
Right. Why do some online spaces feel like a well-organized, quiet library, while others feel like a chaotic, screaming bazaar where 1,000 people are grabbing your shirt trying to sell you something?
It is a profound question. And, I mean, the reason it feels so disorienting is that it gets at the invisible architecture of our daily lives.
The digital architecture.
Yeah. We have this habit, a very human, very flawed habit, of thinking about the internet as just a place we visit.
Right, like it's a neutral backdrop.
Exactly. Like a physical park where we go to read the news or a generic store where we go to buy shoes. We assume the environment itself is passive.
But the data shows us that this is fundamentally incorrect.
It is completely wrong.
And that realization is the driving mission for this deep dive. Today, we are taking a massive, comprehensive look at how to actually measure the digital environments we operate in.
It's such a fascinating topic.
It really is. This is a deep dive into measuring the 4 dimensions of what is called the information field.
The 4 dimensions, right?
Because the ultimate goal here is to understand that the digital spaces you navigate are absolutely not neutral backdrops.
Not at all.
They are active, highly configurable, mathematically engineered environments, and they dictate how humans behave and increasingly how artificial intelligence behaves.
To really grasp this, though, I mean, we have to start by completely redefining what this information field actually is.
Okay, let's redefine it.
Because for a long time, people treated the digital sphere like some mystical ether, a metaphor for being online.
Right, cyberspace.
Exactly. But it is not a metaphor. The information field is a measurable mathematical grid where signals travel from sources to agents.
Okay, a mathematical grid.
Yeah. Historically, if a sociologist or an economist wanted to study how a society functioned, they looked at its institutions. But they define those institutions as these vague rules of the game.
Right. This makes me think of Douglas North and classical institutional theory.
Exactly. Douglas North, who won a Nobel Prize for this, argued that institutions were humanly devised constraints.
Like laws and norms.
He categorized them as rules, laws, norms, shared mental models, the things that keep society from descending into chaos.
But there is a massive structural problem with using North's definition in the digital age, isn't there?
A huge problem. You cannot open a spreadsheet or query a database and directly measure a shared mental model.
Right. You can't quantify a vibe.
You cannot computationally track an informal norm. It is just unobservable.
So the researchers we're looking at today are pushing past that old idea.
Yes. They are redefining institutions as observable, statistically stable clusters of behavior driven by digital trace data.
Digital trace data.
Right. If we can see the data, the clicks, the mouse movements, the scrolling speed, the abandonment rates, well, then we can mathematically measure the institution.
Okay, wait, let me see if I can ground this. If society is a massive flush tank, Classical institutional theory basically just studied the fish.
I love that analogy.
They watched the fish swim around, they tried to guess what the fish were thinking, they tried to write down the unwritten rules the fish seemed to agree upon.
Exactly.
But what we are doing today, using digital trace data, is finally measuring the water itself.
We are measuring the water.
We are measuring the temperature of the water, the speed of the current, the clarity, the toxicity.
Yeah.
We are measuring the environmental physics that actually forced the fish to swim the way they do.
That is exactly the shift in perspective we need here. We are no longer guessing at the mental state of the fish. We are taking tools and measuring the water.
So how do we measure it?
Well, to measure the water accurately, you have to break it down to its most atomic unit. You have to understand what the water is made of.
Which brings us to the anatomy of a signal.
Right. In this information field, the absolute most basic building block, the atom of the digital world, is the informational signal.
The informational signal.
And the researchers stress that every single signal has 4 highly measurable properties.
Okay, let's break those down. What are the 4 properties?
So first you have the source.
Right.
Literally, who or what emitted the signal.
Okay, simple enough. Who sent it?
Second is the carrier. That's the physical or digital substrate the signal travels on.
What does that look like in reality?
That could be a physical fiber optic cable running under the ocean. It could be a push notification API on iOS. It could even be a sound wave from a smart speaker.
Okay, so source and carrier. What's third?
Third is the form. This is how the information is encoded.
Like the format it takes.
Yeah. This could be an unstructured human text. It could be a highly structured JSON LD data feed designed for machines. Or it could be a visual user interface element, like a bright red flashing button.
Got it. And the 4th property?
Fourth is the timestamp. That's the millisecond precision temporal sequencing of exactly when that signal was emitted by the source and when it was received by the agent.
Okay, so to put this in everyday terms, let's say I get a text message from my boss saying I need to come in on Saturday.
A very stressful signal.
Very stressful. So that text is a signal. The source is my boss.
Right.
The carrier is the cellular network bouncing off a tower and landing on my phone's lock screen.
Exactly.
The form is the English text string saying, need you here Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
And the timestamp is 8.1 cc AM and 32 seconds.
You've got it. That is the atomic breakdown of a signal.
Okay.
Now, when you understand that every piece of information is constructed this way, the illusion of a neutral information environment just completely shatters.
Because none of those properties are neutral.
Exactly. A great way to observe this is by looking at the 2023 EU Digital Services Act, the DSA.
Right.
This was a massive piece of European legislation, a major regulatory signal that was specifically designed to force tech platforms to disclose how their algorithms curate content.
Right, because before that, it was just a total black box.
It was a complete black box. And what the DSA disclosures revealed is the mechanics of how algorithmic curation actively destroys neutrality.
How so?
Think about it this way. If a government regulator issues a new public safety policy, that policy is a signal.
Okay.
But 2 different populations of users receiving that exact same regulatory signal will experience entirely different realities, entirely different waters based on the platform's algorithmic architecture.
Because the algorithm steps in.
Yes, the algorithm acts as a dynamic filter. It intercepts the signal, evaluates it, and decides who gets it, how fast it travels, and what visual context it is wrapped in.
Okay, wait, I'm looking at this breakdown of the 4 properties, and I'm stuck on this idea of the source.
Okay, what's sticking?
Well, if an algorithm on a social media platform decides to recommend an article to me from, say, a major national newspaper, who is the actual source in that scenario?
Ah, that is the perfect question.
Because is it the journalist who typed the words? Is it the platform whose algorithm mathematically decided to serve it to me?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it my friend who's 3 hours ago triggered the algorithm to show it to me in the first place?
Right.
It feels like the definition of source breaks down here.
It absolutely does break down. But, and this is crucial, that ambiguity is not an accident.
Really, it's intentional.
It is a highly engineered feature of the platform's architecture. Your confusion highlights exactly why classical institutional theories fail in the digital space.
Because we don't even know who is talking to us.
Exactly. To understand the mechanics of this, we have to look at the Facebook files leak, which was heavily documented by researchers like Shoshana Zuboff around 2019.
Oh, Shoshana Zuboff, right. The Age of Surveillance Capitalism.
Yes. The internal documents from that leak showed that the platform's algorithms were designed to systematically alter the perceived source of a signal in order to maximize human engagement.
Alter the source. How exactly do you alter a source? I mean, you can't just lie about who wrote an article, right?
You don't lie about the publisher, you mask the mechanism of delivery.
Okay, walk me through that.
Let's trace the mechanics. The platform's algorithm might identify a highly polarizing, emotionally charged article from a very low credibility, hyper-partisan website.
The kind of stuff that makes people mad.
Exactly. The algorithm wants to inject this into your feed because its data shows polarizing content increases time on site.
Right. Anger drives engagement.
But if the algorithm just serves it to you directly, your natural human skepticism might kick in.
Yeah, I might see this sketchy domain name and just scroll past it.
Exactly. So the algorithm frames it socially. It packages the signal so that the most prominent visual element is a notification that your close friend or a family member engaged with it.
Ah, I see. So the actual originating source is the publisher of the article.
Yeah.
But the effective source, the thing my brain immediately reacts to, is my friend's face next to a thumbs up icon.
Precisely. The platform is actively masking the true source behind a trusted intermediary.
That is wild.
They are manipulating the signal's source attribution to bypass your perception filter. They know you trust your friend more than you trust the platform or a random website.
Right.
By altering the perceived source, they trigger a specific, predictable behavioral reaction engagement, regardless of the factual credibility of the underlying information.
So for anyone listening right now, the takeaway here is immense. When you see a notification light up your screen, you cannot view it as just neutral information arriving at your doorstep.
No, definitely not.
You are interacting with a highly engineered, weaponized packet of data.
Weaponized is a good word for it.
The source has been intentionally masked. The form has been A/B tested for optimal emotional response. The carrier has been selected based on your habits. All of it is designed to bypass you.
It's not just a message. It is an active manipulation of the environment you are standing in.
Which is the perfect entry point into understanding the first major measurable parameter of this entire digital field.
Right. Now that we know what a signal is, we have to measure the environment they exist in.
And the first parameter is density.
Yes. Density is defined as the mean number of signals an agent, meaning you, the user, is exposed to per unit of time.
And considering I woke up to about 45 emails, 12 Slack messages, and 6 news alerts, I'm guessing density is mathematically off the charts compared to even a decade ago.
It has vastly exceeded human cognitive bandwidth.
Vastly exceeded.
This brings us back to a brilliant observation made by the economist Herbert Simon all the way back in 1971. He was remarkably prescient.
1971. Wow. What did he say?
He wrote that a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention.
A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention.
That is beautiful and terrifying. In our current digital ecosystem, we have an unimaginable wealth of signals. The physical carriers, the fiber optics, the 5G networks, they can pump millions of signals at us every second.
But human neurology hasn't upgraded.
Exactly. We haven't downloaded a brain update. The result is that our attention is utterly impoverished.
So what happens when the density is too high?
When the density of signals routinely exceeds the brain's processing capacity, the brain doesn't just try harder. It implements a survival mechanism.
A survival mechanism.
Yes. It forces a phenomenon called heuristic filtering.
Heuristic filtering. Okay,
Right.
break down the mechanics of that. Does that just mean our brains start taking aggressive shortcuts?
Yes, exactly. When faced with overwhelming density, agents begin systematically ignoring signals without allocating the cognitive energy to fully process them.
Because we just can't.
You physically and neurologically cannot read every single 40-page terms of service agreement.
No one does.
You cannot evaluate the privacy implications of every single cookie banner. You cannot parse the source of every single push notification.
So we just adapt.
So your brain erects a heuristic filter. A heuristic is just a mental shortcut.
Right.
And the shortcut becomes swipe away, block it out, or immediately click the green accept button just to make the sensory noise stop so you can get to the thing you actually want.
It's like, imagine you're trying to hear someone whisper a complex algebraic equation to you, but you are standing in the front row of a heavy metal concert.
I love that visual.
Your brain doesn't even attempt to process the math. It just shuts the incoming audio noise out entirely to survive the sensory assault.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. And the researchers didn't just theorize about this heavy metal concert, they measured the exact cost of the noise.
How do you measure the cost of noise?
This brings us to some fascinating empirical data from a paper analyzing the Digital Transaction Cost Index, or DTCI.
The DTCI.
Yes. The researchers wanted to mathematically measure what happens when human intent collides with high signal density and friction.
Okay, so human intent versus digital friction.
Right. They conducted a massive case study of the checkout process on the Google Play storefront.
The Google Play Store, I use that all the time. But how do you measure the friction of buying an app?
You map out every single institutional gate a user has to pass through, and you measure the drop-off in each one.
Okay, let's walk through this.
The researchers modeled a scenario starting with a baseline of 1 million highly motivated users.
1 million people.
These are people who have already decided they want to download or purchase a specific application.
Okay, so 1 million people who have their wallets out, metaphorically speaking. What is the first hurdle?
Gate 1 is what they call search entropy and dashboard friction.
Meaning?
The user opens the store, but they aren't taken directly to the product. They are hit with a high-density dashboard.
Oh, right, the home screen.
They have to navigate the taxonomy, visually parse through promotional banners, avoid cleverly named sponsored copycats, and locate the actual app they want.
Is a lot of visual noise.
It is. And the cognitive load of just processing that search environment results in a 12% abandonment rate.
Wait, really? 12%?
Yes. So right out of the gate, the platform loses 120,000 users. We are down to 880,000.
Wait, I really want to focus on that. 120,000 people gave up just because the search results were too noisy.
Exactly.
That seems insane for a tech company whose core product is search.
It does seem counterintuitive, but it speaks to the fragility of human attention under high density. If the heuristic filter kicks in because the visual UI is too chaotic, the user just closes the app.
They just walk away.
But it continues. Gate 2 is regional blocks and compliance.
Okay, what does that gate do?
The system automatically checks your IP address, your region settings, and evaluates licensing restrictions.
Oh, like when it says this app isn't available in your country.
Right. Sometimes it throws an error. Sometimes it asks you to verify your country.
Sure.
That friction causes an 8% loss. We lose another 70,400 people. We are now down to 809,600 users.
And they haven't even tried to log in yet.
That is gate 3, the identity wall.
The dreaded login screen.
The user is prompted to log in. Maybe their session expired. Maybe they forgot their password and have to initiate a recovery email.
Oh, the password reset loop. I know it well.
Exactly. Or maybe they have to pass a 2-factor authentication challenge.
Right, which involves switching apps, finding a text message, remembering a 6-digit code, and typing it back in before a timer expires.
Yes, this is a massive spike in cognitive burden. And the empirical drop-off here is staggering. It's 19%.
19%.
We lose 153,824 users right there.
That is huge.
The pool is now down to 655,776 users.
I want to pause the math for a second because this is blowing my mind. Out of 1 million people who wanted to give this company their time or money, we have lost almost 350,000 of them, and we haven't even reached a payment screen.
And we still have 2 gates left.
Oh, man. Okay, what's gate 4?
Gate 4 is device syncing and permissions.
Right, the pop-ups.
The platform has to handshake with your physical hardware. It asks for access to your camera, your location, your microphone.
And you have to stop and read all of those.
The user has to evaluate those permission signals. That extracts another 5% loss.
So people just get creeped out or annoyed and leave.
Yes. We are at 622,987 users.
Yeah, okay. And the final gate,
Finally, gate 5 is the payment wall.
the actual transaction.
Manually entering a 16-digit credit card number, verifying the expiration date, dealing with 3D secure SMS verification codes from the bank, and general administrative fatigue.
Just the exhaustion.
That final wall extracts an 18% abandonment rate.
Wow. So let's look at the final tally. Out of the original 1 million highly motivated users, how many actually survived the entire gauntlet?
Exactly 510,849 survive.
That is just about half.
The institutional architecture of the platform mathematically destroys 48.91% of high-intent economic value.
48% deadweight loss.
Nearly half the users are exhausted by the friction. If you calculate the lifetime monetary value of those lost transactions, it translates to millions upon millions of dollars of deadweight loss.
Okay, I have to jump in here and interrogate this because looking at those numbers, It defies business logic.
How so?
Is this high-density friction just an accident of bad UX design?
Yeah.
Like, did Google just build a clunky, inefficient system by mistake?
That is a big question.
Because if I am running a business and I find out I am losing half of my sales purely to interface friction, I am firing my lead designer immediately. Unless, wait, is this a deliberate institutional feature? Is the friction intentionally designed to extract user data at the cost of the user's time and immediate purchase?
That is the pivotal insight of the DTCI framework. The researchers argue conclusively that this is not an accident of poor design.
It's intentional.
Tech giants employ the best UX designers on the planet. The architecture is operating exactly as intended.
That is wild.
The friction exists deliberately to enforce identity extraction, regional compliance, and ecosystem lock-in.
So they are fine with losing the sale.
The platform is mathematically willing to accept a 48% deadweight loss in immediate app transactions because the data they harvest from the survivors through those friction gates, your highly verified identity, your linked hardware profile, your granular location data, is immensely more valuable.
Oh, wow.
That data sustains their broader ecosystem monopoly. They are strategically extracting your time and your cognitive bandwidth to build their long-term institutional power.
That is incredibly sobering.
Yeah.
They are trading my exhaustion for their data mode.
Beautifully put, yes.
But if density is about how much noise there is in the tank, that naturally leads to the next question. Who actually gets to make the noise?
Right.
Which brings us to the second parameter of the information field, access asymmetry.
Exactly. Access asymmetry investigates the unequal distribution of signal broadcasting capacity across different sources in a network.
Okay, unequal broadcasting power.
In a perfect flat world, everyone would have the exact same megaphone. But we know that isn't true.
Obviously not.
To quantify just how unequal the megaphones are, researchers utilize a mathematical tool called the Gini coefficient.
Let's define that, because I know the Gini coefficient from traditional economics.
Right, it's very common there.
It's typically used to measure wealth inequality within a nation-state, correct?
Yeah.
Like, a Gini coefficient of 0 means perfect utopian equality. Every single citizen has the exact same net worth.
Exactly.
And a Gini coefficient of 1 means absolute dystopian inequality. One single person holds 100% of the country's wealth, and everyone else has 0.
That is exactly how it is used in economics. But in the context of the information field, the researchers are mapping it to a different asset.
What are they measuring instead of wealth?
They are using the Gini coefficient to measure voice, or the volume of signal output, across all sources in a given network.
The volume of voice.
Okay, a high Gini coefficient in an information field means that a microscopic fraction of accounts, or a handful of specific algorithms, completely dictate the information environment.
Okay, so give me a real-world example of that.
Look at state-controlled media in a strict autocracy. The state holds the only broadcast license, so the Gini coefficient approaches 1.
Right, only one megaphone.
Alternatively, think of highly skewed social platforms where a tiny elite class of mega influencers generates 90% of the visibility, while millions of normal users shout into the void.
Also a high Gini coefficient.
Yes. Conversely, a low Gini coefficient implies a highly distributed, egalitarian broadcasting field where many different voices have relatively equal reach.
And what's wild is that because we are dealing with digital trace data, this isn't just a philosophical theory anymore. We can objectively, mathematically measure the inequality of voice.
You can measure it with astonishing precision.
So how has this been measured recently?
A fascinating empirical demonstration of this comes from a massive 2022 study by researchers Munger and Phillips.
Okay, what did they look at?
They aimed their analysis at the network of right-wing YouTube.
Interesting.
Now, leaving all political evaluations, biases, or ideological content completely out of the discussion, treating it strictly as an observable data environment, what they did methodologically was brilliant.
Right, just looking at the physics of the data.
Exactly. They wanted to see exactly how concentrated the power of voice was in that specific subculture.
So how do you actually measure that? How do you map the power of a YouTube video?
They utilized a supply and demand computational analysis.
Supply and demand.
Okay. They essentially scraped the data to map the total supply of content being created and plotted it against the demand or the actual viewership and reached those videos achieved.
So how many videos are uploaded versus how many are actually watched?
Yes. By tracking the metadata of millions of views and mapping which channels were successfully distributing signals to the audience, they calculated the topological access asymmetry of the network.
So they were purely looking at the physics of the distribution.
Yeah.
What did the math show them?
The math revealed an incredibly high Gini coefficient.
Really high.
Yes. Despite the perception that YouTube is a democratized platform where anyone can go viral, the structural reality of that specific network was that a very small, highly centralized cluster of sources was supplying the vast, overwhelming majority of the signals that successfully reached the audience.
So a few giant channels were drowning out everyone else. Exactly. The long tail of independent creators had almost zero topological access.
The study perfectly illustrates how you can take an abstract concept like access asymmetry and mathematically map it onto a real-world network to reveal its hidden power structure. And that is completely independent of whatever the people in the videos are actually saying.
So connecting this back to the listener's daily experience, what does living inside a high Gini coefficient actually do to a person?
It has a massive psychological impact.
Like, if access asymmetry is extremely high, does that mean the behavioral spectrum, meaning the total range of ways people in that network can possibly react, think, or behave, does that artificially shrink?
Yes, it shrinks dramatically.
Because if we're all being fed the exact same restricted, highly concentrated diet of signals from 3 megachannels, our responses are going to homogenize, right?
That is precisely the consequence. When access asymmetry is high, the perception filters of the entire population are bombarded by a highly uniform set of signals.
There's no diversity in the water.
Exactly. There is no diversity in the water. This forces rapid, narrow behavioral conformity.
That makes total sense.
Let's contrast two different digital environments to see this clearly. Look at a narrow-spectrum, autocratic media environment.
Okay.
The Gini coefficient is near 1. Everyone receives the same state-approved broadcast at the same time. The behavioral spectrum is incredibly rigid.
Everyone acts the same because they all see the exact same thing.
Right. Now, contrast that with a wide-spectrum platform like Reddit.
Reddit is definitely wide spectrum.
On Reddit, the architecture allows for tens of thousands of independent, highly active subreddits generating niche signals constantly.
The weirdest subreddits you can imagine.
Exactly. The Gini coefficient of voice across the entire platform is much lower. Because the broadcast power is distributed, it allows for a vastly wider spectrum of behavioral responses, subcultures, and adaptations to emerge.
But here's where my mind goes next. Even on a democratized platform like Reddit or Twitter, those signals don't all travel at the exact same speed.
No, they don't.
Some things go viral, some things disappear.
Yeah.
Which perfectly bridges us to the third parameter of the information field, propagation speed.
Yes, propagation speed. This is technically defined as the time required for a specific signal to reach a specified proportion of the target population.
How fast the message spreads.
Right. For a very long time in the early days of the internet, sociologists relied on a theoretical model called flat network propagation.
Flat network propagation.
The baseline assumption was that in a highly connected, fiber optic digital world, everyone essentially gets the news at the exact same time. The friction of distance was supposed to be dead.
Right. The idea was that information on the internet acts like a drop of heavy food coloring in a small glass of water. It hits the surface and just disperses evenly and instantly in all directions until the whole glass is red.
It's a beautiful metaphor, but empirical reality has completely dismantled it.
Really, the glass of water is wrong.
The data shows we do not have flat networks. The glass of water is an illusion. What we actually have are diffusion cascades.
Diffusion cascades, what's the difference?
Well, a foundational massive study by Grull, Watts, and Goldstein in 2012 looked deep into the network topology of Twitter. They tracked how signals actually move from node to node, and what they found overturned decades of assumptions.
What did they find?
They found that the vast, overwhelming majority of signal cascades, like a user tweeting something, maybe one person retweeting it, actually die out within just 1 or 2 hops.
They just fizzle out.
They hit a topological dead end and vanish. But a tiny, statistically unpredictable minority of signals somehow catch the right algorithmic updraft and achieve explosive viral reach, cascading across millions of nodes in minutes.
So the speed differential is staggering.
Absolutely staggering.
One piece of information dies in 5 minutes and reaches 3 people. Another piece of information travels through the exact same cables on the exact same platform, but reaches 3 million people in an hour.
Exactly. And this extreme speed differential has a profound sociological impact. It fundamentally fractures populations into distinct knowledge cohorts.
Knowledge cohorts. Explain how a cohort forms.
To see this clearly, we can look at the data surrounding the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh boy, yeah.
During the early, highly chaotic days, you had official public health guidance being issued, and you had rampant viral misinformation spreading simultaneously.
Right. All at once.
Now, both types of signals were traveling through the exact same physical infrastructure, the same undersea cables, the same cell towers, the same social media platforms.
So they had the same speed limit
They
baked
had
in.
the same potential speed, but they reached entirely different subpopulations at entirely different times.
Why? If the cables are the same.
Because algorithmic curation, combined with the access asymmetry we just discussed, actively diverted the cascades. The algorithm accelerated one cascade for cohort A and artificially suppressed that same cascade for cohort B.
So if I'm understanding the gravity of this, because of the invisible algorithmic topology of the network, you and your neighbor could be sitting on the exact same physical street.
Yes.
Your houses are 20 feet apart. But digitally, you are living in entirely different time zones of information.
Entirely different time zones.
You receive a piece of critical news, say a change in a local law or a major geopolitical event on Monday morning via a high-speed viral cascade. But your neighbor doesn't receive that exact same piece of information until Thursday.
Or, incredibly, they might never receive it at all because their specific algorithmic filter choked off that cascade before it reached their node.
Wow. So even though you share a physical zip code, you are effectively operating in two completely different institutional realities.
That is the exact reality of the information field. You are experiencing different realities because the water in your part of the tank has a fundamentally different propagation speed for specific signals.
That is wild to think about.
And recognizing how chaotic that is sets up the fourth and final field parameter perfectly.
Right. We've talked about density, asymmetry, and speed.
Now we have to talk about chaos. We have to talk about Shannon entropy.
Named after Claude Shannon, the legendary mathematician and father of information theory.
Yes, tracing all the way back to his landmark 1948 paper that essentially laid the groundwork for the digital age.
So what does entropy mean in this context?
In this specific socio-technical context, entropy is used to measure the heterogeneity of an environment.
Heterogeneity.
It measures the diversity, the complexity, and the sheer chaos of the signals present.
Okay.
If you have an environment with a high-density, high-entropy field, meaning there are millions of signals, and they are all wildly different kinds of signals in different forms from different sources, it produces a massive measurable delay in the convergence of social institutions.
Let's translate delayed convergence. Yeah. Does that just mean it takes a group of people much longer to figure out what the rules are and what they're supposed to do?
Exactly. When the environment is too complex, collective agreement breaks down.
That makes intuitive sense.
And researchers prove this mechanism with an incredibly elegant laboratory study known as the button press experiment.
Oh, I love behavioral game theory. Walk us through the mechanics of the rooms. What was the setup?
They wanted to isolate entropy and measure its exact effect on human behavior. So they took 200 participants and placed them into digital simulation rooms with varying levels of signal complexity.
Just to see what they would do.
Just to see how fast a stable behavioral institution, a shared rule of behavior would form.
Okay, what was the first room?
They started with condition 1, which was engineered to be a low entropy field. Imagine a participant walking into a stark, empty white room.
A blank slate.
There is exactly one visual signal in the entire room, a large red button on the wall. Next to the button is a sign written in the participant's native language that simply says, "Press me."
Okay, very Alice in Wonderland, but incredibly simple.
It is the lowest possible entropy environment. There is no competing noise. And the behavioral results were stark and immediate.
What happened?
The behavior of the group stabilized almost instantly. By the second round of the simulation, virtually every single participant pressed the button.
Because what else are you going to do?
Exactly. To measure this mathematically, the researchers used a metric called total variation distance, or TVD.
Let's pause and define TVD, because that sounds intimidating. In plain English, what does total variation distance actually measure?
It is actually quite intuitive. TBD simply measures the distance or the difference between what a group of people does on Tuesday versus what they do on Wednesday.
Okay, the change in behavior over time.
Right. If 100 people press the button on round 1 and the exact same 100 people press it again on round 2, the behavior hasn't changed at all.
So the distance is 0.
The TBD is 0.00. In condition 1, the TBD hit 0.00 by round 2. The group achieved complete instantaneous institutional convergence. Everyone agreed on the unwritten rule. You press the button.
Because there's literally no other option. There's no other signal to distract them.
Precisely. But then the researchers ramped up the chaos.
Bring on the entropy.
Let's look at condition 4, which was engineered as a high-entropy field. A new set of participants walk into a room, but this time the environment is overwhelming.
What's in the room?
There are 30 different buttons on the walls, all different colors and shapes. Furthermore, the signs next to the buttons are not in English. They are written in invented alien scripts that no human can decipher.
Pure, unadulterated chaos. A nightmare UX design.
Exactly. And the behavioral spectrum of the participants completely shattered.
What do you do?
Faced with overwhelming entropy, the participants exhibited massive, uncoordinated, exploratory behavior.
So they just started guessing.
Some participants frantically pressed multiple buttons in sequence. Some paced the room trying to decode the alien text. Some literally froze in place, suffering from complete cognitive overload.
They just gave up.
As a result, collective convergence was incredibly delayed. When the researchers calculated the TBD, it did not drop to 0.
What was the number?
It remained stubbornly high, hovering around 0.26 across multiple rounds. The behavior of the group kept shifting wildly from round to round.
So they never settled on a rule.
The system was trapped in a state of active, chaotic, institutional formation. This study proves empirically that the complexity and entropy of the physical environment actively constrain the ability of humans to form stable institutions.
Wait, I need to challenge the framing of this. Because when we talk about delayed convergence and cognitive overload, it sounds inherently negative. It sounds like high entropy is a bad thing we need to fix.
I see where you're going.
But is it? I mean, if we are talking about building a diverse, pluralistic, democratic society, shouldn't we want a high entropy information field?
That's a great point.
Even if it means it takes longer for us to agree on a stable rule, I don't think I want to live in a stark white room with just one red button that an authority fund tells me to press.
You are hitting on the fundamental philosophical tension of institutional design, and the framework absolutely validates your challenge.
Okay, good.
High entropy is not inherently bad, just as low entropy is not inherently good. What the framework shows us is that it is an unavoidable design trade-off.
A trade-off.
Architects, whether they are politicians designing a democratic process or software engineers designing a social media platform, must choose between rapid compliance and behavioral adaptability.
So if you want compliance, you lower the entropy.
Yes. If your primary goal is rapid, unquestioning compliance, you engineer a low entropy field. You build the one red button. You remove all dissenting signals.
Right.
But if you want a system that can adapt to new, unforeseen challenges, a system that fosters diversity, pluralism, and innovation, you must deliberately tolerate a high entropy field.
You have to accept the chaos.
You have to accept the cost, which is that convergence will be messy, delayed, chaotic, and exhausting for the participants.
That tension is fascinating. The tension between the neat, orderly rule we are supposed to follow and the messy, chaotic reality of what we actually do when we get tired.
It's the core of human behavior.
Which leads us perfectly into analyzing how we measure that gap. How do we separate what we are told to do from what we actually do?
To do that, we have to introduce a new term and define what a norm actually is within the physics of the information field.
Because up until now, we've used norm and institution somewhat interchangeably in casual conversation.
Right. But in this framework, a norm is not an institution. A norm is a meta-signal.
A meta-signal, meaning a signal about a signal.
Exactly. It is an interpretative code that exists alongside normal signals, providing instructions on how you should react to them.
So if the signal is a piece of IKEA furniture in a box, the norm is the instruction manual telling me how I am supposed to put it together.
Yes, that's a perfect way to put it. And understanding that the instruction manual is separate from the actual behavior allows us to introduce a brilliant concept called institutional anime.
Institutional anime. That sounds heavy.
It updates Emile Durkheim's classic 19th century sociological theory of anomie, which meant normlessness, or a breakdown of social bonds, and brings it into the digital age.
How does it work in the digital age?
In this framework, institutional anomie is the mathematically measurable gap between the normative prescription, what the meta signal explicitly tells you to do, and the behavioral reality.
Which is what the stable cluster of people actually does in the data.
Exactly. We can precisely measure this gap using statistical tools. You can use TVD again, or another metric called the Jensen-Shannon divergence.
Okay, let's unpack Jensen-Shannon divergence really quickly, just so we don't lose anyone in the math. What are we measuring there?
Think of Jensen-Shannon divergence as a way to measure how much two probability distributions overlap.
Okay, circles on a graph.
Imagine you have two overlapping circles on a graph. One circle represents what the rule says everyone should do. The other circle represents what the data shows people actually do.
Right.
If the circles overlap perfectly, the divergence is 0. If the circles are far apart, the divergence is high. That high divergence is the mathematical signature of institutional anomie.
I love that visual. Okay, give me a real-world, everyday example of institutional anomie that everyone listening has experienced.
The absolute best, most universal example is the GDPR cookie consent banner that plagues European and global websites.
Oh, the cookie banners. We all know those.
Let's look at the two circles. First, what is the legal norm?
What does the instruction manual say?
The norm, the meta signal, codified by the European Union regulators, explicitly dictates that users must be presented with clear options and must provide active, informed consent before their digital data is tracked.
That is the normative prescription. The manual says, read this and make an informed choice.
Right. But we all know what the second circle looks like. What is the behavioral reality?
But nobody reads it.
The behavioral reality, the actual institution that emerged and stabilized in the digital trace data, is the click accept all reflex.
Just smash the green button.
Studies show that over 90% of users click the bright green accept all button in a fraction of a second without reading a single syllable of the policy.
Why do we do that?
Because of everything we've already discussed.
Yep.
Transaction cost exhaustion and high signal density. The friction of encountering 40 different cookie banners a day forces the human brain to use heuristic filtering.
We just want to see the recipe. We don't care about the cookies.
Exactly. So the norm explicitly demands informed, deliberate consent. But the actual mathematically proven institution is blind, exhausted compliance.
The gap between those two circles is massive.
And that gap is institutional anomie.
You know what it reminds me of? It's exactly like the speed limit on a major highway.
Oh, that's a good one.
The metal sign bolted to the side of the road, the meta signal, the norm, says 55 miles per hour. The government dictates that as the rule.
Right.
But the actual institution, the stable behavioral cluster of the vehicles on the pavement, is everyone driving 75 miles per hour.
Exactly.
If an alien came to Earth and only measured the metal signs, they would understand absolutely nothing about the reality of human traffic. You have to measure the behavioral cluster of the cars to understand the true institution.
That is a flawless analogy. The sign is just a meta signal. The traffic is the institution. And for the last 2 decades of the internet, we have been studying the traffic of human beings. But here is where this entire conversation takes a massive paradigm-shifting turn.
Oh, here is where it gets really interesting.
Yes, because everything we have discussed up to this minute, the exhaustion, the cognitive overload, the heuristic filtering, clicking accept all because we just want to read an article, is entirely predicated on human biological limits.
Right, humans get tired.
But we are currently standing at the precipice of a completely different era. The architecture of the internet is transitioning away from serving humans and moving toward the A2A economy.
The agent-to-agent economy. Let's really dig into this. What does that actually mean for the architecture of the web?
The current digital economy is built around visual interfaces designed to manipulate human psychology.
Banners, colors, emotional triggers.
Exactly. But in the A2A economy, artificial intelligence agents will navigate the information field on our behalf.
So I won't be browsing myself.
In the very near future, you will not open Expedia to book a flight. You will simply tell your personal AI agent, find me the best price on a flight to London next Thursday, and book the window seat.
And the AI just does it.
Your AI agent will then launch into the information field and interact with the airline's AI agent to negotiate and execute the transaction.
Okay, so if the primary actors in the environment are suddenly machines, how does an AI agent experience those 4 dimensions we talked about? Density, speed, asymmetry, entropy.
It experiences them completely differently.
Because an AI doesn't get a headache. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't suffer from human cognitive overload, right?
An AI does not get biologically tired, no, but it is bound by a different set of physics. It is bound by strict constraints based on computational efficiency and latency.
Okay.
And because of those constraints, AI agents fundamentally alter the dynamic of signal blocking.
How does an AI block signal?
When a human navigates a retail website, our eyes process a massive array of visual cues. We process the emotional appeal of the lifestyle photos, we process the psychology of the brand colors, we read the persuasive copywriting.
We take in all that high entropy.
AI agents operate differently. They ruthlessly mathematically optimize for compute efficiency. When an AI agent hits a website, it actively blocks out over 90% of those human-oriented signals.
It just ignores them.
It does not care about the brand story. It is immune to the emotional appeal of a photograph. It strips all of that high-entropy visual interface away so it can look at the raw underlying data.
It just wants the pure math. It wants the price, the dimensions, the shipping time.
Exactly. And this introduces a critical new engineering concept that will define the next decade of business. Token waste.
Token waste. Okay, explain the mechanics of that.
Yep.
By tokens, we are talking about the computational units that large language models use to process information, right?
Precisely. Every time an AI processes data, it costs computational tokens. Compute is expensive.
Right, so you want to use as few as possible.
So if a digital institution, say a traditional e-commerce storefront, has high entropy and high transaction costs, how does an AI handle it?
Well, how does it?
If the site has pop-up videos, confusing visual navigation, unstructured paragraph text, and hidden fees, a human user might painfully slog through it if they want the shoes badly enough.
Yeah, we suffer through it.
But an AI agent will simply abandon the site instantly.
Wait, why? Because it's too confusing for the AI.
Not because it's confusing, but because it is computationally expensive.
Uh-huh.
Parsing an unstructured, chaotic, human-designed web page costs an AI too many compute tokens to figure out where the price is hidden. It is inefficient.
So what does the AI look for instead?
AI agents will heavily, systematically bias their behavior toward clean, structured APIs. They want to interact with JSON-LD data feeds where the transaction cost in tokens is near zero.
So if I follow this logic to its conclusion, AI is about to act as the most intense evolutionary selection pressure the internet has ever seen.
It absolutely is.
It is going to systematically wipe out high entropy, high friction digital institutions. All the messy websites with pop-ups and dark patterns.
Yeah.
Because the machine agents simply will refuse to interact with them.
Yes, they will just bounce.
The AI will only spend its owner's money in machine-operable, low-friction, highly structured environments.
The institutions and businesses that survive the transition to the A2A economy will be exclusively those that minimize token waste for the purchasing algorithms.
Wow.
And this has devastating foundational implications for traditional business models.
Wait, so you are saying that all the billions of dollars spent globally on beautiful graphic design, persuasive copywriting, UI/UX optimization, and deep emotional brand storytelling,
Yes.
all of that is basically going to be reduced to token waste the second an AI becomes the primary buyer.
Mathematically, yes. Traditional marketing is entirely based on manipulating human perception filters through high-entropy visual and emotional signals.
It relies on our biological flaws.
Exactly. It relies on the biological flaws in the human brain. That entire industry becomes mathematically obsolete to an AI buyer.
Because an algorithm doesn't feel anything.
An algorithm does not feel brand loyalty. It cannot be guilted by a sad video. It evaluates only the structured parameters available in the API: absolute price, statistical delivery speed, and historical reliability scores.
That is so stark.
If your business relies on visual bureaucracy, emotional friction, or brand prestige to hide the fact that you offer poor mathematical value, AI agents will simply route around you.
They won't even see you.
The evolutionary selection pressure of the internet is shifting violently from human psychological manipulation to sheer algorithmic efficiency.
Okay, let's take a breath and synthesize all of this, because we have covered a truly massive amount of ground today.
We really have.
We started by redefining the internet not as a passive park, but as an active, highly engineered body of water.
We are measuring the water.
We looked at how our very attention is constrained by the physics of that water. The overwhelming density of signals, the incredible speed of their propagation through diffusion cascades, the severe access asymmetry of who gets to broadcast those signals, and the chaotic entropy that prevents us from easily forming stable rules.
And if there is one core thesis to take away from all of this data, it is that institutions, the rules that govern our lives, are not invisible mystical forces.
They are data.
They are quantifiable, observable clusters of behavior. They can be measured with precision, they can be engineered by platform architects, and they can be mathematically predicted by analyzing the digital trace data we leave behind with every single click, scroll, and swipe.
Which brings me to a final thought I want to leave you with, something for you to mull over the next time you open your phone.
It's a big question.
If AI agents are going to ruthlessly filter out 90% of human-centric persuasion, and if the entire digital economy is going to rebuild itself to optimize for zero-token waste and peak efficiency in the A2A economy,
Yeah.
what happens to the human internet?
What is left for us?
Do we end up with two entirely separate, parallel information fields? One that is a hyper-efficient, invisible, structured matrix of raw data exchanging hands at light speed just for the machine agents.
Yeah.
And a slow, high-entropy, beautifully chaotic, emotionally manipulative theme park left behind just to keep the humans entertained.
That is a haunting thought.
Next time you blindly click accept all on a cookie banner just to get it out of your way, pause and ask yourself, am I acting on a conscious rule or am I just surviving the friction of the theme park? Keep questioning the signals around you.